him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Anthony Witrado. Anthony, Dodgers restart. I keep saying start the season. They restart the season with a dominant 7-1 victory. We're going to get into all of it, the offense, Tyler Glasnow, all of it, but let's just start big picture. Opening day. I mean, I know it's been tweeted a zillion times today, but why is this not a national holiday?
I've said that for so long. I might have even said it on this show possibly, but yeah, look, I think that would make sense because one, it's always during the week for some reason. And there are so many day games, right? Like, I mean, just, it's supposed to be America's pastime, right?
Totally. Well, and one of my hottest takes as a Dodgers fan, and I'm just going to come out firing, is I don't like day games. Opening day is the one exception. I have incredible memories of skipping school and getting to go to the Dodger games. Do you have an opening day Dodger Stadium memory that sort of jumps out to you?
I do. Yeah, I have some, I have a bunch of opening day memories. But I think the one that really sticks out for me is at Dodger Stadium. Someone can correct me if they remember what the year was, but I think it was 2011. And Clayton Kershaw faced the Giants, I believe, at Dodger Stadium and threw a shutout and hit a solo home run. The Dodgers might have added on one in the 8th inning or something like that, where it's to where that might not have been the only run, but he had them beat 1-0 by himself.
Yeah,
that was incredible.
Kershaw's the man. I like I said, in high school, we would skip high school and go to the game, and I'll never forget. I had a buddy who was a Diamondbacks fan, and he wore the old school. I mean, at the time, it wasn't really old school, but now it's old school. But it's the Diamondbacks where they had like the cut sleeve jersey with the purple shirt underneath. And he had a Curt Schilling jersey. And we had about the cheapest seats in the entire building. We were reserved top right corner. I mean, as far down the line as you – I'm not joking when I'm saying we're like 2 rows from the top and 3 seats from the railing in the very top corner. I'll let you use your imagination on how friendly those people were to my buddy in a Diamondbacks Curt Schilling jersey. While we were playing the Diamondbacks, we had things thrown at us. And it was my own personal mistake sitting next to the guy in the Diamondbacks jersey. But again, I don't like day games. Opening day is the one exception. Incredible, incredible stuff. And I can only imagine 67 degrees today. The guy's coming out the blue carpet down in center field. To me, it's like whatever time the game starts, I need to make sure I'm dialed in at the TV 20 minutes early so I can see the entrances, so I can see the anthem, so I can see the flyover. Like, we just know the Dodgers knock this type of production out of the park. So great stuff there. But let's just get into the actual game itself. Again, they take down the Cardinals 7-1 on what I'm calling reopening day, domestic opening day for everybody not named the Dodgers and the Padres. Big picture for you, Anthony, as this game played out. What was it kind of your experience watching this game? Like, what were some of the big takeaways or things that you kind of left this game thinking and feeling?
Well, History Man 0828 tells me that that Kershaw homer was 2013 opening day. So who am I to argue with with the guy whose name is History Man, right?
There you go.
So I'm sure that's when it was. But look, watching this game, the first thing that I really wanted to look at and sort of be able to take stock of was Tyler Glasnow. Those 2 games in Korea, they were awesome. I really liked what the offense looked like. You got to see kind of glimpses of things, but it was almost like those were just sort of standalone games. It feels a little weird, right? They count on the record, but it didn't really feel like a real opening day. Maybe it was because it was at 3:00 in the morning for Dodger local time or whatever. But this really did feel like opening day back at Dodger Stadium. So getting that second look at Glasnow and really being able to dissect his stuff with one eye not closed and half asleep. And he was fantastic. He was fantastic. Yeah. There was one strikeout he had looking, and I don't remember what inning it was, maybe 3rd or 4th, something like that. But he painted, 97, 98 down and away on the black. and rang up whoever was in the box, and it was just like, whoa. And not only was it 98 and the location was fantastic, but one thing I like about him is like you can kind of tell this with some pitchers. The ball coming out of his hand and getting to it looks like it's a bowling ball.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it hurts the batter's hands to make contact with it unless it's on the barrel, right? Like he's got those just boring fastballs. And watching guys like that pitch is fun. So he was the first thing that I really wanted to get a good look at. You know, the Dodgers being the home team, you know, the big three at the top of the order, get a chance to see after that, or you know, first. But once those guys came up, I mean, every possible billing that had existed before this, they lived up to it. And you know, and like I said, Korea was the official, you know, games count, but today really felt like opening day, and for the rest of the country and the rest of the baseball loving world to be able to see those guys, and they did not disappoint. I mean, that was an electric performance by the three of those guys, with the only blemish really being the Ohtani Toot Bland base running error at the in the first inning. But other than that, I mean, they were as advertised, and that was really good to see considering all the hype that was around them.
Yeah, these are the best type of games because they jump out to an early lead and then they just get to coast. You never felt the game. I literally, after the first inning ended, I feel like we all had a pretty good sense of how this was going to play out. It played out exactly as we imagined. So I'm excited to dive into this. Shout out to the people in the chat, by the way, watching us live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Show has just started. We're up over 800 people. Thank you. I see that we've got some folks from Japan. Welcome. We've got a friend, Jason, longtime viewer from Canada. Welcome. I'm sure we got lots of people all over the West Coast as well. So let us know where you're from. That's always fun to see in the chat. I know as a guy who lives in the Pacific Northwest, it's always helpful for me to remember. I'm not the only one up here watching from the state of Oregon, but it's good to have everybody here. Again, the plan, we're going to go over the game. We're going to go over talk. We're going to talk offense, going to talk that top three. As you said, Anthony, I mean, whatever superlatives you wanted to use to describe them, however much you thought might be too much hype for this group, they exceeded it. I'm not expecting them to do this every day, but today was unbelievable. And then, of course, we've got Glasnow, who we talked about. We'll talk about tomorrow's game, Bobby Miller on the mound for the Dodgers, and then get your thoughts because we haven't talked about the Will Smith extension. A couple nuggets on the Ohtani investigation, both from Ohtani and Rob Manfred as well. So that's where we're getting. We've got folks from Fontana, Fresno, Salem, Oregon. Shout out Pacific Northwest. Some more folks from Japan, Los Angeles. Not a suburb, so shout out EB from actual Los Angeles. I'm guilty of that up here. It's like, hey, where are you from? LA. Oh, what part? Oh, 40 miles away from Los Angeles. You know, it's like I use LA as the catch-all, and I think we get it. But good clarification. You're from actual Los Angeles. We've got somebody from Mexico. We've got Mexico. We've got Canada. We've got Japan, Redlands, Bakersfield from the Matrix. That's new. Kentucky. That might be a first. You might be the first Kentucky person that we've had on the show. Czech Republic, 3 a.m., Sydney, nice. Australia. We're fully international here, Anthony. We got Australia, Czech Republic, Victorville, Berkeley. Those places aren't. We got some friends from Arizona. Sorry about the University of Arizona. One of the worst coach basketball games I've ever seen. But back to baseball. Back to baseball. We got a super chat from Laura, one of our favorites on here. Do you think the balls are juiced again? Lots of homers today. What do you think, Anthony? Was it just day game? We know balls fly in Dodger Stadium in the day game. It also doesn't hurt when it's Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Paul Goldschmidt on the other side hitting them. What do you think? Lots of home runs today, coincidental, or just some early season excitement, jitters, and day games helping the ball fly?
Yeah, day game, Dodger Stadium. We know the ball flies when that's the case, much more than at nighttime there. Also, you know, I think watching those games in Seoul, Korea, where the ball was like, I mean, it felt like they were hitting a brick, right? Like there was.
Speaking of bowling balls, you said Glasnow looked like he threw a bowling ball. I think guys were trying to hit bowling balls in South Korea.
Yeah, they put some swings on balls there where you're like, oh, that's gone. And it was like a routine fly ball, right? The ball Freeman hit today, I did not think it was going to get out.
No.
I thought that was probably a warning track ball that was going to end up getting caught. But the one Mookie hit was a no-doubter. I mean,
yeah, toasted.
You know, he reacted like it was a no-doubter too. So, no, I don't think the balls are juiced yet. We'll see what offense looks like in about a month or two.
Yeah.
Baseball may have something to say about that. But yeah, I just think, you know, day game, Dodger Stadium, Mookie, Freddie, you know, two guys who can hit the ball out, and Goldschmidt. So, you know, nothing to do with the balls. I think just, you know, some bad locations. That pitch to Goldschmidt wasn't an awful pitch. Yeah. You know, the location was okay. Just he got the barrel on it. But you know, good to see some balls that you think should go out again. You know, after Korea.
Yeah, Laura, I think it's a great question. Something to keep an eye on. I haven't paid attention much to other games around the league other than my fantasy team, which has 0 home runs. So my fantasy team would like for maybe some juice baseballs to get thrown back in because a couple of my guys need home runs. But something to keep an eye on. Again, I think today could be explained by just being a day game, being Mookie, Freddie, and Goldschmidt, but remains to be seen. I'm with you on the Freeman one, though. I mean, that was a breaking ball, and I think Joe and Oral even pointed it out on the broadcast that, like, Freddie had to supply 120% of the power of that baseball. The fastball was, you know, the velocity of the pitch coming in was doing him no favors, and yet he still crushed it. So great stuff there. Again, thank you for the super chat, Laura. If you've got a question that you want answered immediately, or you just want to say thank you and show some appreciation, feel free to throw a super chat in there. We'll stop what we're talking about at a convenient time and get to that as quickly as we can. But we've kind of beat around the bush here a little bit. So let's dive in to this one. We talked about it. The Glasnow gets through the first inning with just a hit to Paul Goldschmidt in the first. Bottom of the first, walk for Mookie Betts, a double for Ohtani. Ohtani gets thrown out, I guess technically between second and third, standing on third. There's some debate here, Anthony, and I'd love to get your thoughts. There's no outs, so I completely understand Dino Ebel putting the stop sign up and saying, hey, we got Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and Max Muncy due up. We're not getting the first out made at home. Now, Ohtani needs to recognize that. He showed the replay. His head is down. He's not even paying attention to it. That said, all of that said, I think the ball was on the warning track when Dino threw the stop sign up and Mookie was coming around third. I think Mookie would have walked home. I think Ohtani would have had a stand-up triple. So I want to side like 65% with Dino here, and Ohtani's got to be looking up. But 35% of me says, I know there's no outs, but I didn't feel like there was a risk there. What did you think?
Ohtani was juiced up, man. I mean, he was thinking, he was ready to go. He was thinking more than a double. You know, I made a joke on Twitter that maybe Shohei is just still used to having to play for the Angels, and like, you know, it's like when you play T-ball and the ball goes in play, and he just runs till someone makes him stop. And so
the Angels are just sending guys home anytime somebody gets to third. It's like, just get that guy home as quickly as possible. We're not assuming anybody in the 5, 6, and 7th spot in our order is getting any RBIs here.
Not at all. But no, you clearly saw in the replay his head was not up. He was not looking at Dino. He was not looking at Mookie. So ultimately, this is on Shohei. I think he kind of admitted that after the game, but everyone else is right who is also saying like Mookie would have scored pretty easily, it looked like. But again, nobody out. Freddie Freeman, guy who's a top 3 MVP candidate, is stepping into the box. You know, I think Shohei's got to look up there and recognize the situation. No harm, no foul. You know, the run scored, and everything's good, and we can laugh about it now. But I guarantee you, the next time a situation like that pops up, he's probably going to get his head up sooner.
I love this. Eric Lopez, Shohei the next wild horse. The Yasiel Puig tendencies from Shohei Ohtani. That might be the only thing those two guys have in common, by the way.
Let's hope that doesn't last.
Fair enough. Freddie Freeman due up next. Does what Freddie Freeman does. RBI single. A single from Will Smith. A sacrifice fly by Max Muncy. And all of a sudden it's 2-0 Dodgers before the first inning is even over with. Fast forward bottom of the third. Leadoff home run by Mookie Betts, which I want to say I believe we called on our show. I think it was me and Tuesday night. Somebody asked who was going to hit the home run. I think Scott and I both went with Mookie. So Mookie gets the first home run, a walk from Ohtani.
You really went out on a limb there.
I know. Look, I get it. You know, but hey, we're going to take the victories, Anthony, wherever we can find them. All right. If it's a plus 300 instead of a plus 1200, we're going to take it.
There you go.
Home run Mookie, walk Ohtani, home run Freddie Freeman. And from there, 5-0. They tack one on in the 6th and the 7th. And the story here is the offense. We've mentioned these 3 guys. How about this for a stat line, Anthony? Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, 1, 2, and 3 in the lineup. They came to bat 12 times. They got 5 hits and walked 4 times. So 9 out of 12 times, 75% of the time any of these 3 guys walked to the plate, they got on. But it wasn't just getting on. They scored 6 times. They knocked in 4 runs. They had a double. That was Ohtani getting thrown out. Could have been a triple. And 2 home runs. We said it from the get-go, Anthony. There isn't hype that this performance would not have surpassed or lived up to. And absolutely incredible. And I would say, to use another I word, this has to be intimidating. Like the next guy who we're going to talk about, Zach Thompson, taking the mountain tomorrow, he's got to be terrified knowing that he's got to face these guys at least twice as the starter, he hopes, maybe 3 times, and knowing that you're just crossing your fingers you can get him out half the time.
Yeah, this was a situation where, it's always interesting in an offseason, right? Because you're like, oh, yeah, those guys, they're really good. And then, time passes and you haven't seen them for, however many months. And you're like, well, maybe it's just a bunch of hype. Like they can't be that good, right? Like a guy who won the MVP in his league last year and then 2 guys who finished in the top 3, like, okay, like, let's wait and see. And then just right out of the gate, they just come and they're punishing the farmer from the Midwest. And what a dummy. I mean, just what a dumb thing to say when you're going to face that kind of lineup. Maybe if it was just a bunch of like number 1 type prospects coming up and you're like, they're a bunch of hype. Like, all right, maybe these are 3 MVPs like in recent memory and guys who are still, incredibly productive. And you say something like that, and then they just beat your head in. I mean, that's
beat your head in.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love this from John Bleeding Blue. Thank you for the super chat. He said, Karma always wins. Miles Mikolas, 5 earned runs in 4 innings. His final line, 4 1/3, 7 hits, 5 runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. From the get-go, this is a guy who does not rely on incredible stuff. He's a soft tosser, basically. He's not quite Ryan Yarbrough as a soft tosser, but, 92 mile an hour with trying to pick his spots. And the second I saw that, I was like, oh, this ain't going to be good for you. The guy making tons of money, talking about checkbook baseball. As John says, Karma wins. Mikolas gets rocked around by the Dodgers, ends up giving 5 runs, and he's the guy who's out of this, who takes the loss for the Cardinals in this one. But again, just an unbelievable performance from these 3 guys at the top. Double, 2 home runs, 6 runs, 4 RBIs, 9 out of 12. I can't get over that. 9 out of 12 times these 3 guys came up, they reached base. Look, I mean, it's easy to say that's a recipe for success. But, like, if these guys – I don't think it's crazy to think that these 3 guys might have an on-base percentage as a group that's 400. I mean, like, that's in play for them. So if you think about, okay, they're going to get 12 at-bats in a game like today. 400 means they're going to get on base on average 4 to 5 times every single game. And they're going to do it, if Mookie Betts is getting on 2 of those, that means Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Will Smith are coming up with a guy on base all of those times. And so this stat line might feel like an anomaly. It might not be the norm because this is outrageous. But I just think looking at this group, I'm not going to say I expect this, but I'll be more surprised by an 0 for 12 than I will be a 9 for 12.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's not out of the realm of possibility that's the kind of the norm. I think with these guys, like, you're going to have a 10-game stretch in June, right? Or July or something like that, where, they don't produce at a high rate. But to have all of these guys just go cold, those top 3, I don't see it happening. Somebody's going to be, somebody's going to be riding their horse like normal. And while the other 2 kind of are trying to pick themselves up, every now and then. But I'll say this, like Will Smith, Max Muncy, to Oscar Hernandez, like those guys have to be just absolutely salivating at what this could be for them. Right. Especially a guy like to Oscar who's on a 1-year deal and is, in that pillow contract situation, looking for his next payday. But, I think that other teams are looking at this. And if they do this again tomorrow, you used the word intimidating earlier. It's just that, like, these guys are all big leaguers and they're here for a reason for the most part, and when you see the superstars of the game, the mega stars of the game put up a line like this, and if the series kind of goes this way for them, they're going to walk into these games against the Dodgers and they're going to be looking for answers from the very start. And it's what the way this lineup is built, there's just not many there. You just kind of have to hope that a guy's searching when you happen to get him. But like I said, the fact the probability of all 3 of those guys searching when somebody gets them is really, really low.
Yeah, and look, the 4 guys after them went 5 for 14 with a sacrifice fly. So, I mean, that's not stuff that you're necessarily like, that's not going to make the headlines. But Muncy's 1 for 3, Smith 1 for 4, Teoscar 1 for 4, James Outman 2 for 3. Now, James Outman, admittedly, a guy I love, and I'll be on the first one to say the 2 for 3 is a little misleading because one of those was an infield single, the other was a seeing eye grounder. But 5 for 14 from the guys right behind them before you get to an 0 for Hayward and an 0 for Lux is pretty good. Doom Sal, I see your super chat. We're going to get to it in just a second. But this just made me think of this. I just finished the book Jeff Pearlman wrote called Three Ring Circus, and it's about the Lakers. It's about the Shaq, Kobe, Phil Jackson Lakers. It's a ridiculous, I think is the right word, book. It was a quick read, super entertaining. I mean, it's just outrageous, some of the stuff that is in this book. But what struck me, Anthony, was the number of stories that were told and quotes from guys who played the Lakers, who just were openly 20 years later being like, yeah, we knew we had no chance. Like, it did not matter. We knew we were outmatched. We knew we were outmanned. We knew Kobe and Shaq and Phil. It was a wrap for us before the series even started, before the game even started. And then Shaq and Kobe had this vibe of like, yeah, we know that they know. Like, we know that they think they have no chance, and so we're going to take their heart. Look, this isn't Shaq and Kobe. I'm not comparing a Dodgers team that's 3 games into a season. But I just have to imagine this is game 1. Like, what's the Cardinals? What's the vibe in the locker room tomorrow? What's the vibe in the locker room when they show up to the ballpark tomorrow and they hand the ball to a guy named Zach Thompson who made 9 starts last year with an ERA of around 5, a 1.42 whip, and he knows that when he takes the ball in the bottom of the first, it's going to be Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman, and he's going to probably see Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman again in the 3rd, if not the 4th, and then if he were to make it as far as the 5th or 6th, he's probably seeing them again. I don't know how you, like, these are professionals. I'm not here to say that, like, they don't believe they have any chance. I just have to imagine for the pitching staff, especially, that has to be in your head, right?
Yeah, and I think that at a certain point, the scouting report is just don't give these guys free passes, right? And that was Mikolas's first mistake was walking Betts to start the game.
Yeah.
And then, it just kind of cascaded on him from there. But, with the lack of a real game plan to attack this top 3, I mean, even top 4, if Will's going good, and top 5, depending on money, just this lineup is so deep.
So deep.
But I think the number one thing for the opposing team is you can't give these guys free passes. That has to be, one of the first 2 things that is on this scouting report, considering there are not a lot of ways to get these guys out consistently, at least, right? And so, when that's the case and guys are trying to, like, okay, you know what, I'm going to have to throw this guy a strike because if I walk him, then, if I walk Freddie, Shohei is coming up and then Will Smith is behind him. So then these guys end up seeing more strikes and they get more barrels. I mean, it's a domino effect. And like I said, I think you're going to see a lot of this where one bad thing happens, right? Maybe somebody reaches on an error, or maybe you don't get a borderline pitch and you end up walking Mookie or something like that. And then all of a sudden it just rains down on you. And you look at the scoreboard and you're 30 pitches into the inning and they've put across 4 runs and you have 1 out. I mean, that's what this offense is capable of doing. I mean, if the pitching staff doesn't implode, you say what you want about Yamamoto, but if they don't implode in game 2 in Seoul, the offense is the story coming out of Korea for sure. Yeah. And so, I think that they just have this sort of, before you know it, you're buried, an avalanche kind of, top of the order there. And like you brought up the Lakers, and it's fun to hear like these ex-players come on, like Gilbert Arenas' podcast or Carmelo's new podcast. And they, like, now that the time has passed, they say like, we'd had no chance. Like they kind of knew. And I think when it's all said and done, there's going to be a 3 or 4 year window here where I think opposing pitchers are going to come out and say, yeah, that's what that was like.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And you mentioned the walks. I mean, Mookie walks in his first at bat, comes around to score. Ohtani walks in his second at bat, he comes around to score. So you give 2 of these guys free passes, they come around to score. And just like that, the game is different. But even going back to the game 1 in Korea that they won, they were struggling with runners in scoring position. But it just is one of those things where it's like, it's going to happen eventually. And then all of a sudden it's like 3 or 4 hits in a row and it's an avalanche, like you said. So I think that's a great point. We're going to here we go. Doom Sal with the super chat again. Sorry for the delay. He said, thoughts on the second base slide that almost took out Mookie. So I forget the exact inning, 3rd or 4th inning, I believe. Contreras is at first. There's 2 outs, ground ball straight up the middle. Mookie positioned behind second base. I tweeted about this, got a ton of interaction for it. But Mookie catches it, clearly going to second base, easily steps on the bag, gets about a step and a half off, thankfully, because Contreras has not slowed down. Not only has he not slowed down, he is sliding to the inside of the bag, the pitcher's side of the bag, the side of the bag that Mookie is clearly running towards. And not only is he sliding, Anthony, the cleat is up, and the cleat is about 3 inches off of the ground. I don't like to be the guy that like accuses somebody of being a dirty player, like that as an identity statement. This was a dirty play. It was a nasty play, and it was like nearly very, very bad. So did you see things the way that I'm describing myself seeing them?
Yeah, I thought it was I don't want to call it dirty like you. I don't think he's got that reputation yet, and hopefully he doesn't earn it.
Yeah.
But it was a dirty play. Yeah, for sure. And I'll say this. It may not have been talked about much after the game, if at all, but there are guys on that team who are not going to forget that happened. It's a long season. You're going to see them again in St. Louis. You're going to see them, this weekend. Yeah. And so that's not something that's going to be forgotten. Baseball players have those sorts of memories. I just think that, especially on opening day, on something like there was no rhyme or reason for it. And I don't know if maybe he spaced out and kind of galaxy brained it or whatever. I'm not, I kind of want to give the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Right. But it did not look good. And especially when it happens to a star player. There are guys in the dugout who saw that and made mental notes for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing, and again, thank you to everybody live. I see people in the chat saying Joe Kelly will take care of this. Bobby Miller will take care of this. The one thing that comes to mind, Anthony, as we talk about this, though, is it is interesting because the Dodgers, I don't want this to come across. Like, I just think the Dodgers' aspirations are so much higher than most of the teams they're going to be playing against, specifically a team like the Cardinals. That as much as like I saw someone tweet at me right after this happened, or a couple innings later, is like Joe Kelly's warming. Don't worry, Joe Kelly, he'll take care of this. But part of me thinks like as much as fans, we see that and we would love to be like, hey, go hit this guy, like throw one behind him, tell him that's not acceptable. I just think the Dodgers have so much more to lose in those interactions than a team like the Cardinals does, because if you start something like and a Dodger gets hurt, it's the Dodger who's going to be far more costly to his team than some random Cardinals player who ends up getting taken out. And so as much as I think the fan in us wants to see the Dodgers say, hey, Bobby Miller, like you watch the replay, first at bat, brush him back a little bit, tell him what's up. That's the fan in me. I'm with you all. The fan in me wants to see this guy punished in some way. First game of a 4-game series, second game of a 4-game series, game 3 of 162. I just am warning people, I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, it depends who pitches and who remembers it, right?
Like Bobby Miller doesn't seem like it's not going to be the young 22, 23-year-old guy, right? Who's going to take care of this?
If he was a reliever, maybe, because there are certain unwritten clubhouse laws that say like, you better go out and show who you are and show that you're part of this team. I don't think Miller's the guy who needs to do that, especially as a starter. Like he's got too much to lose. But also, like you said, I think the Dodgers do too. The last thing you want is because look, there's already a little bit of beef here based on what Mikolas said, and I didn't see any of the comments coming out of the Cardinals clubhouse today, so I don't know how he addressed it or if he was asked about it or what. I'm sure he was, but I didn't see anything like that yet. But the last thing you need is for things to get hot between these two teams, and then guys start getting thrown out on both sides, and then. Let's say Will Smith wears one on the hand or something like that. And that's like you said, the Dodgers have too much to lose, and they have bigger aspirations than just getting even with a guy like that, especially at this point in the season.
Yeah. Here's a quote. I believe this is from Miles Mikolas. Yeah, this is via the St. Louis Dispatch. Money talks, right? I ended up on the losing side of that one. Talk a little smack here and there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So that was Mikolas's quote.
Yeah, and he's right. And in his defense, he's right. There's nothing wrong with that. It adds a little spice to everything. I mean, it was a stupid thing to say, considering like I'm sure the Major League Baseball Players Association, loved when he said that, right? Because essentially what he's saying is like, stop spending so much money. Dude, you're a player. Like you should be loving that. You should be pissed at your organization for not doing it. Like, it's funny, like, this is a little bit of a tangent, so sorry everybody, but the Giants and the Padres fans and everybody else kind of coming at the Dodgers for spending, $1 billion, and then, they extend Will Smith now, and basically saying, you're trying to buy a World Series. The Giants offered contracts to every single person that the Dodgers signed this offseason.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I was in San Francisco last week, and I heard plenty of the Dodgers are just buying a ring. This one's not going to matter. And it was like, dude,
yeah,
you try to get Aaron Judge, you try to get Bryce Harper, you try to get Yamamoto, you try to get Ohtani. Like, what?
Yeah.
Just because you keep swinging and missing, don't dog the guys who won.
Right. And I joke about Mikolas, for him to say it, the guy who signed a 3-year, $56 million contract with a 5 ERA. It's not that the Dodgers are playing checkbook baseball and the Cardinals aren't. They're just playing dumb checkbook baseball, while the Dodgers are signing guys that actually are good with the $18 million a year that they're paying. Speaking of the Padres, by the way, small tangent. Have you seen the clip of Machado trying to break the bat over his knee? Did you catch this one?
Oh, no. I watched the end of that game, but I did not see that. No.
It's classic. Took a baseball bat, tried to break it over his knee, did not break, and just kind of came up. Like, you could tell it hurt. And it's just classic. It's just the best. If you go on my Twitter account, you can find it. It's just peak Padres on day one. I freaking love it. I guess day 3 for them. Excuse me. But holy smokes. If you haven't seen the Machado, again, go to my Twitter account, @Jeff Spiegel. It's so good. So good. Somebody can throw the link in the chat. Yeah, unbelievable. So, all right, we talked hitters, all that. Again, wow, 1,400 people watching live with us. We appreciate you all. Let's talk Tyler Glasnow. 2-0 on the season, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned, 5 strikeouts for him. He gives up a single to Goldschmidt in the first and then retires 8 straight before Goldschmidt gets him for a home run. And then the Cardinals against Glasnow and Yarbrough go 0 for their next 16. How's this for a stat? Guys not named Paul Goldschmidt tonight, Anthony, were 0 for 27.
Yeah.
0 for 20. That's a no-hitter. That's a no-hitter against everybody not named Paul Goldschmidt. They did have a walk, so no perfect game. But 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts for Glasnow. Yarbrough, 3 innings saved, 3 innings, 1 hit, no earned, no walks, 1 strikeout. But you mentioned it. Glasnow, some other stats, by the way. His slider, 8 out of 14 swings at his slider resulted in whiffs. 12 out of the 20 swings that weren't against his fastball resulted in whiffs. The fastball, though, 22 swings, just 1 whiff. So if there's something that was interesting to me, and I'm going to actually paint this as a positive, it's that he didn't actually have his best stuff. So previously he gets about a 22% whiff rate on his fastball. It was below 5% tonight. And yet despite that, Anthony, against the team in the Cardinals that I don't think any of us are expecting to be World Series contenders, they do have a couple names you're familiar with in the middle. I'm not going to say these are guys at the peak of their powers necessarily, but I just felt like, to me, the encouraging part was he clearly didn't have his best stuff. Anybody who follows this guy, who knows baseball, says his stuff's amazing. So I watch a start like this, and I'm not concerned. I'm saying, holy smokes, Anthony, wait until this guy's stuff is actually dialed in. When the fastball isn't getting a 4% whiff rate, it's back up to 22, and he's still getting a 60% whiff rate on his off-speed stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, guys' stuff isn't there this early in the season. It kind of comes. They're not coming out of spring training looking to peak for opening day necessarily. Like they're still working things in. And I noticed that too. He wasn't incredibly sharp. Had a little trouble at times putting guys away. But there were times where some of those you can see why he grades out plus with so much of his stuff. He threw a 12-6 curveball today. I forgot to who it was, and the thing just fell off the planet. And it was tight. It wasn't like a big looper like Kershaw will sometimes throw. It wasn't like that. It was like kind of looks like a fastball, and then it's gone. And so this is the first guy in a long time that they've had, I think, where the stuff just plays no matter what. They've had guys who obviously have been great pitchers, and we've seen Kershaw for, so many years. But in terms of just raw movement and raw stuff and plus pitches, Glasnow is as good as they've had in a long time. Yeah.
And the chat correcting me, rightfully so. We need you to hold us accountable on here. He did not get the win in Korea. He pitched. The Dodgers won, but the Dodgers put that game away in the 8th inning. He was long gone. So 1-0 for Glasnow, 2-0 in Glasnow starts. But look, if Paul Goldschmidt wasn't in this game for the Cardinals, this one would have been a lot uglier. And I just, again, to sort of summarize my thoughts, I was shocked to go back and see he only allowed 2 hits because it didn't feel that dominant watching it. And yet I think that's the mark of a good pitcher. That's what we're getting at, is the mark of a really good ace, great pitcher is not like kind of what's your ceiling necessarily, although that's very important. It's almost like what's your floor. And I think, I'm not going to say this was his floor, but when you only get 1 whiff on 22 swings on your fastball and you're a guy that's supposed to have one of the better fastballs in the league, that's not your best stuff. That's not your best outing. And yet 2 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run, more than enough with this lineup. To me, I just walk away feeling better about Glasnow. And I know that might sound weird because people are going to say, wait, so you're encouraged by the fact that he didn't have his best stuff? Yes, I'm encouraged he didn't have his best stuff and still got the job done.
And got these kind of results. Yeah, exactly. That's for sure a valid take. For him to, one of the things is like he might not have had the swing and miss stuff with everything today, but aside from Goldschmidt, no one could really find the barrel on him.
Yeah.
And the 5 Ks through 6 innings is fine. You hope that, you're going to have days where he strikes out at guys at a higher rate for sure. But there was not a lot of hard contact against him today.
Nope.
He induced some pop-ups and some weak contact to the infield and things like that. So, while the swing and miss stuff might not have been there the way we hope it will be for the remainder of the year, they really did not have a chance outside of Goldschmidt to get to this guy.
Yeah, I was just going to look at exit velocity. He had 5 hard hit balls were the only hard hit balls allowed by Glasnow in this one. So,
and how many did Goldschmidt have 2 of those?
Yeah, probably. Let me see if I could. Here we go. We'll do this on the fly. Exit velocity. Gorman had 110 mile an hour lineup, and then it was Goldschmidt on the home run, 101.8. Actually only 1 for Goldschmidt. He had a 100 mile an hour force out, 99 mile an hour pop up, and then a 97 mile an hour. That was the error by Mookie Betts. Yeah. So let's talk about that briefly because I do think it's worth mentioning. Mookie Betts does make an error, ground ball to shortstop, kind of has to wait for the hop to come to him, and then just can't get it. When they showed a replay, they didn't zoom in. It just didn't look like he got the ball clean. And then it comes out ugly, bounces it to Freeman. Honestly, it's a play that I feel like Freddie Freeman makes more often than not, but it's definitely on Mookie. There's no part of this that's on Freddie. Freddie bails guys out more often than I think we sometimes give him credit for. But look, this has been shaky. Like, we could just call it what it is. Mm-hmm. Mookie Betts in the Freeway series and then now, this is I don't want to say concerning because it hasn't mattered yet, but there's going to be a game where it's tight and where you need an out and where that error is going to come back to bite you a little bit. So where are you at on Mookie Betts at shortstop? And I want to be clear, by the way, I don't blame, this isn't on Mookie. Mookie got moved to this position a week ago. So I have all the grace and empathy in the world. I'm just saying, all that aside, Mookie Betts at shortstop right now, I have some questions.
This is going to be a work in progress for a while. I think if we get worked up over every time he makes a mistake, it's going to be a long season in terms of that. Fair. Because like I said, this is going to be a work in progress. He's had to learn he's still learning. He's learning 2 new positions, over the course of 8 weeks here. And it wasn't like he played the infield before that necessarily, as a full timer. So, give him some time. Some of these growing pains are going to be, just part of the season with him there. And, he'll make a great play every once in a while. And you're going to be like, oh man, maybe this guy really can't stick there. Right. And then he'll kick something or not get to a ball you thought he should have got to, or something like that. And you're going to have, people are going to want to have this conversation probably. I think the biggest thing is just make the plays that you should make the, 95, 96, 97% of the time, ideally. And they'll be okay. Don't be Trey Turner in the playoffs, the fans are going to love you there. But I think we have to understand, this is a guy learning an entirely new position, an important position, a position that gets a lot of action. This stuff's going to happen. He may grade out for a while as a below average defensive shortstop. But he keeps having offensive days like he does today, and it's not really going to matter.
No, it's a great point that you make about the defense. We had Mike Petriello on the show. It was a great interview, and he kind of had done a deep dive on every play that Mookie Betts had made or not made at shortstop. And kind of the point that comes through in both the article and in the interview is what makes a great shortstop is not making the deep in the hole, Derek Jeter jump, throw, play. What makes a great shortstop is making the expected play 100% of the time. And he used Dansby Swanson as an example. You don't think about Dansby Swanson as this like SportsCenter top 10 type shortstop. But what Dansby Swanson does, and Miguel Rojas, I think, is another great example, they just literally never miss on the easy ones. Like literally never miss. It's
Right.
like Mookie Betts hits the last year, I think it was like 92% of the time he made average plays. Like Swanson's literally 100% on those plays. And that's the gap between the elite and the not elite. And today was a perfect example. That was an easy play. Did the guy have speed coming down the line? Was it a play that needed to be made maybe a tad quicker than Mookie was used to? Sure. But this was just a matter of getting a ball and having to make a quick transition, and he just didn't come out clean. And so I'm with you. I see people in the chat. This is spring training for him. I think that's the right approach. With Gavin Lux, there was reason to be sort of critical because, hey, dude, you've played this position for a long time, and I wanted to give him grace because of the knee injury, the mental side, all of that. But regardless of how you felt, like Mookie Betts, I don't think literally has played shortstop as a professional baseball player until last year, and it was for like 42 innings or something like that. And now he found out he's going to be the starter 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and he's learning the position on the fly. There's going to be growing pains. Nobody's freaking out about it. Nobody's pissed at Mookie about it. It's just the reality of something to monitor if some of these games aren't 7-1 blowouts.
Yeah. And I Doom Cell, I saw your comment there about, that's what spring training is for. But the guy literally got the job days before Korea. Days before. Like I think it was the week before they left, right, or something like that. Yeah. So, it would be ideal if he had all of spring training to work on learning this new position. He spent almost all of spring training learning a different one, and then got told, "Oh, by the way, you're going somewhere else." And so. And you're going to see situations like what happened today, right? Where Doc goes, okay, we need some defense here. Rojas is going to move over or, come into the game at short, and we're going to slide Mookie over and Gavin's going to come out. And so, you're going to have situations like that where, hopefully it's not a situation where they need Gavin's bat in the game because they're up bigger and you can play for defense. And then hopefully it's not a concern then. But it's going to be a work in progress for a long time. So I think we're just gonna have to settle in and ride the roller coaster for a bit.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's talk tomorrow. There is another baseball game. I know it's opening day. Sometimes they have those weird years where you play opening day and then you get a day off. Not the case for the Dodgers. They get four straight games.
Because we're in California where we don't get rainouts.
Yeah. Until Saturday, probably. It sounds like.
How would you like to be on the East Coast though? Like every single year, and like someone's opening day gets rained out, like their real opening day. That's gotta suck.
Well, there were like 3 games or multiple games like that were canceled like days before opening day. Like it was like, oh, we already know there's no chance. I mean, look, I was driving through Northern California and into Nevada the last couple of days. I'm out of town visiting some family. Like it's snowing here, like it's baseball season and there's snow on the ground and coming. So it's crazy stuff there. But let's talk tomorrow's game. There is a game. Bobby Miller takes the mound against Zach Thompson. Again, one of the storylines here that I think could be blown up way bigger than it needs to is that Bobby Miller's in the number 2 spot and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who started game 2 in Korea, is in 3. I'll just put that one to bed. There's nothing to see here other than matchups and ordering and sequencing and that kind of thing. If you're not the opening day starter, it literally does not matter if you're 2 through 5. Doesn't matter. They picked matchups, they picked situations, et cetera, et cetera. So Bobby Miller gets the start. Zach Thompson, I've referenced on the other side, getting the start for the Cardinals. This is a guy that if you weren't familiar with, I wouldn't blame you. He made 9 starts for the Cardinals last year, 16 relief appearances, finished with an ERA of 4.5, a 1.42 whip. Did face the Dodgers one time as a reliever on April 30th, 2/3 of an inning, 1 hit, 2 walks, 1 strikeout, and 2 earned runs. So the Dodgers not a team he probably remembers fondly. But here's the interesting piece, Anthony, that I think is worth talking about. Thompson's a lefty. And if there's something that's going to be interesting to see how Dave Roberts manages, if you want a before-the-game storyline, what are the Dodgers going to do with the lineup? Is James Outman really going to be platooned? That was one of Blake's bold predictions on our show. Outman comes out of the game late against a left-handed reliever. I don't look too much into that, but if he's out of the game tomorrow for Chris Taylor, that'll be a big one. We know probably not Chris Taylor, because Taylor's probably taking Jason Hayward's spot, who we know is a platoon guy. But what about Gavin Lux? Is Kike Hernandez in for Outman? Is he in for Lux? Is Rojas in at short and Mookie moves over? These are the storylines not unique to Thompson, but based on the fact there's a lefty on the mound. How do you think Dave Roberts handles the lineup tomorrow?
It's going to be interesting. I thought Outman would just be the everyday guy until further notice, until he kind of maybe lost that privilege. But coming out late in the game, and that could have been just be like, hey, let's get Chris and AB. It could have just been one of those kinds of things. That happens a lot in baseball. So I think whatever happens tomorrow with the lineup is going to be telling in terms of what we're going to see, at least for the near future. When it comes to lefty righty matchups, I would like to just essentially run out the lineup they did today with the obvious changes that we kind of already know about.
Hayward.
So, and Outman, not being part of that right now. Let's let the guy play himself into a platoon versus just throwing one at him. But the top of that order really isn't affected too much by
it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't really matter. I mean, fine. If you think that's how you beat them.
4.5 ERA is a 4.5 ERA, Anthony. Doesn't matter if you're throwing righty or lefty, but Ohtani, Mookie, and Freddie are slobbering looking at this guy's 2023 box score.
And you think Mookie's hot right now? Just keep throwing lefties out there because you're worried about Freddie and Ohtani.
Let me put you on the spot. Does Outman start tomorrow?
I think he does. He does.
Do you think Lux starts tomorrow?
No.
Wow. And you think so? Then do you think it's Kike? Do you think they're moving Mookie to second base? Do you think Rojas? How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, I could see them going Rojas at short and Mookie to second. I could see that being part of the platoon there, at least in certain situations. I would like to just see them run like I said earlier. I would like to see them just run the lineup out there and flip Hayward and let's rock. I'm especially guys who have offensive capability. I'm more of let them play themselves into the platoon versus let's just start that way. So I would let Gavin play. I really do like him in that 9 slot. It's possible. You've heard me say this before. I think it's possible that he's an all-star caliber offensive second baseman. And, when's the last time a guy hitting 9th for the entire season made an all-star game? That'd be kind of cool. But I would like to see them go easy on the platoons, at least for now, and maybe just, sub guys in and out as needed later in the game. But that's going to be interesting for sure. And it's going to be, when you have a team that has this many answers in terms of just who is in the lineup every day and who has their positions locked in, these are the kind of things that become big storylines. And so, we're waiting to see. We're all salivating to see what we're going to be talking about.
My thing is it's day 2. We don't need to get Chris Taylor at bats or Kike Hernandez or Miguel Rojas. Here's my deal. I'm complete. Chris Taylor and Jason Hayward, I think, is just going to be a platoon. And I think Teoscar is going to move to right. Chris Taylor play left. You could take that one to the bank. Jason Hayward will not be in the starting lineup tomorrow. That's a guarantee. I think for me with Outland, I think he needs to be an everyday guy. And when I say everyday, I don't mean 162 games, but I mean 150, 145 games. I think he's good enough defensively. He's a very, very good defensive center fielder, and that alone should give him the opportunity to be out there. He was a slightly below average hitter against lefties, but I think his defense more than makes up for it. And I think as a young guy, don't just assume he's going to be Jock Peterson. Let him prove to you one way or the other. If he puts together another bulk season where it's an 85 weighted runs created plus against lefties, then fine, we can have a conversation because I think they have guys that can play a competent left center field. To me, Gavin Lux not being in the lineup tomorrow would be a massive, massive, massive mistake in my estimation because it's going to be a storyline. We already know where the narrative is around this guy. He's not good enough. He can't play short, etc. How's he going to feel if in game 2, after going 0 for 3, he gets taken out of the lineup? He already got pinch hit for it today, which who cares? But if he's not starting tomorrow, where's his head going to be at after that? What's the mental game going to be for a guy who's weak? And we kind of joked about it on social media. I don't think it's a joke. They had 20 guys on the side of the stadium, and Gavin Lux wasn't one of them. Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez aren't starters. and their faces were on the side of the stadium and Gavin Lux's wasn't. Like, there's only so many chances you have to tell this guy that he actually matters to you and that you care and that you believe in him. And taking him out in game 2, game 4, whatever we want to call this, is absolutely not the way to communicate that.
It seems like a small thing, right? And like a petty thing, kind of like, oh, Gavin Lux isn't on the mural outside of the stadium. Big deal.
There are 20 guys, there's 20 of them.
It's not like they didn't have the opportunity to put him up there. And you're right. For him to be left off that thing, and it's a beautiful mural. It's one of the coolest things I think they've put up there in a lot of years. 100%. And for that guy not to be on that, because he's going to see it and he's going to be like, oh, this looks pretty awesome. Where am I? Oh, I'm not on it. He's already said, like, he's had issues dealing with the mental side of the sport and being a big leaguer. So you wonder what something like that does to him. And then if he gets platooned in game 2, you wonder what that does to him. So yeah, look, I think that they have to treat him a little differently than they might treat like a grizzled veteran type of guy, right? Like Jason Hayward is not going to be affected by getting platooned. Nope. He knows what the situation is already. And Gavin walked into spring training thinking he was going to be an everyday shortstop. And now in the 4th game of the season, you're telling him he's a platoon second baseman.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
That's tough, man. And I think you just have to, you ride this guy until it's not sustainable anymore. And a platoon is a quick way to kill confidence and make him believe that he's really not part of this long-term journey. And whether he is or he isn't, you need the performance for him while he is. And that's not going to help the situation.
Totally. I see people on there saying, hey, who cares if he's on the mural? My point is, on one hand, there's 20 guys. Like, if it were 6 guys, fine. Like, when Kike Hernandez makes the mural, oops, lost me there. Sorry about that. When Kike Hernandez makes the mural ahead of him, and Kike Hernandez is like not even an automatic platoon guy like Chris Taylor. When Chris Taylor makes mural, I know those guys are more well-known. They're not starters. They're not going to get like half the at-bats that Gavin Lux is going to get. And I see people saying, hey, you're pampering him. Guess what? Maybe he needs to be pampered. Like, the Dodgers need his production.
Yes. And I'm saying, I'm fully aware of that's a situation. But me saying they need to treat him a little differently is saying that, and sometimes, you have to do that sometimes. It's not unlike any other sport. It's not unlike the NFL. It's not unlike the NBA. You treat certain guys differently. Look, we can say all we want to say about Dave Roberts and the mishaps he's had in the playoffs, about pulling guys early, about leaving guys in, about whatever. I've written columns on it. Like, I'm right there with all of you. But the reason why he's the manager of this ball club is because of his relationships and his communication ability and, the way the players buy into him as the manager. And that's part of this. He understands that, okay, maybe Lux needs a little more TLC than, a different guy, maybe more than James Outman, who's in his 2nd year. And so him recognizing that and doing it and then getting the most out of Gavin Lux, that's why he's in the dugout. That's why Dave Roberts is there, right? So, you really want to hope that he can bring that out of Gavin and whatever issues he was having with dealing with this whole thing kind of just evaporate, and he ends up being the player, at least offensively, that we thought he could be. And, look, it doesn't matter if he's on the mural or not to us, but it might matter to him because at one point in this guy's career, not very long ago, he was seen as a cornerstone player along with guys like Will Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see, like, what does this say about his mentality? Ederico says that this is what caused, if this is going to mess with him. Nobody is disputing that. What we're saying is,
it's a series of things, right? It's not just the mural. It's a series of things that have happened.
Yeah. And my point is just to land the plane. The Dodgers need Gavin Lux this season. Like at some point, they're going to need him and his bat. And he's looked okay. He's looked fine defensively. I've said he was an above-average defensive second baseman back in 2022. So the defense piece that everyone was freaking out about has not come to fruition, the yips or whatever. Like, he seems to have righted that ship a little. They're going to need his bat at some point. And so to throw that all away because you're trying to prove a point or because you're trying to weed him out or something, to me, would be crazy. So my prediction and my hope is that Outman and Lux are both in the lineup. If not, I'm going to be bummed out. I'm going to have thoughts. I'm going to have takes next time I'm on here because I just don't get it. Like, the upside to trying to get Kike Hernandez a few at-bats in the 2nd game of the domestic home season would be crazy to me. So hopefully I'm wrong. We know it's Jason Hayward, probably Chris Taylor in for him, but I'm hopeful that everything else, at least the guys, stayed the same. You want to move some guys around? Sure. I don't really care too much about that. I think the top 4 are going to be the top 4. If Muncy and Teoscar switch spots or something, like, whoop-de-doo. Does not matter to me whatsoever. I'm just hoping, give Outman a chance to prove he can or can't hit against lefties, and let him play defense, because the defense in that position matters. And let Lux have a runway. Tell him, hey, man, we believe in you. You're an everyday guy. Even against lefties, you're going to be out there. We're going to give you a chance to earn this spot and see what happens. These games, A, may not be close enough to where it really matters, and B, in the grand scheme of things, might not be the end of the world. Let's get to a couple news and notes things just to get your thoughts rapid fire before we get to some questions. An Ohtani update. 2 things happened today around Ohtani and the scandal, if you want to call it that. The first was Rob Manfred was interviewed, and he basically said, we expect that this whole process is going to be dealt with pretty quickly. He wants to ensure that Major League Baseball fans have belief and trust in the game that they're watching, that there's no gambling going on, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's encouraging that Manfred is like, we're not wanting this to drag on. We're hoping to have this done quickly. He did point out, hey, we don't have the firepower that the FBI does to go and investigate this, so we'll see what happens. And then the second piece was Ohtani took some questions in the dugout. Dylan Hernandez had an interview up on the LA Times kind of saying, hey, can you explain how the money got out of your account? Who is investigating? And we got a bunch of no comments. I've said all that I can say, that kind of a thing. I can't disclose that, as sort of expected. So that's the Ohtani update. I would say the Manfred piece to me feels like, as a Dodgers fan, if Manfred wants this over quickly, that's good news for the Dodgers. I'm not saying it's going to be a sham investigation, but I think his motivations and our motivations are aligned.
Yeah, it sounded to me like he was trying to not sweep it under the rug, but make it be known that, like, they didn't see a lot of smoke here, if you're reading between the lines, from Ohtani, right? Yeah. Like, I think they sort of are taking him at his word with his statement. And it sounded, when that comment about, like, we don't have the power or the authority that law enforcement has that are actually investigating this situation, to me, that said, if they don't think he gambled, we're not going to go find it.
Yeah.
And, you can, people can theorize all they want about that. But look, if the federal government isn't finding out that Shohei Ohtani, lost $5 million betting with an illegal bookie, Major League Baseball probably isn't either. And everybody has different sources and everything like that. But I think you're right. It sounded like Manfred was just like, look, we're going to do our due diligence, but we're not seeing any reason to panic here about our face of the league.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out, I've said this before, Ipe is no longer an employee of Major League Baseball. He's under no obligation to participate in a Major League investigation, whether he does or not, to be determined. John Bleed Blue, very sorry, you posted a super chat a few minutes ago and we missed it. Let me circle back to it. He said, Dave Roberts always gets fired by the people after every loss. That's a great way of putting it, by the way. But Roberts made the right call with Ryan Yarbrough, the 3-inning save. Yarbrough was good. 3 innings, 1 hit, no earned, no walks, 1 strikeout. This is sort of his role. Like, hey, we're up by 6 runs by the time 5 runs, I think, by the time he got into the game. No, I guess it would have been 6 because the Dodgers tacked on in the top of the 7th. He came in for the bottom of the 7th, but just gets the job done. It's not pretty. Only 1 strikeout, but no walks, just 1 hit. Weird lefty, throwing soft. After seeing Glasnow's 98, his 86-mile-an-hour fastball probably felt impossible to hit. But again, I think a great stuff. Dave Roberts getting one guy to get you 9 outs, not having to burn anybody else, knowing you've got 7 games in a row. Good stuff from Roberts and from Yarbrough.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good move, and Yarbrough got the job done, right? Because if he doesn't get the job done, then that strategy that Dave implements doesn't work. He kept guys off balance, and like I said, missed some barrels here and there, and just got through it. And he looked good, and that's what his job is going to be for a while in this bullpen. I also thought it was great from Dave to try to get this to work because you may need the bullpen for a little longer tomorrow, right? And so he's managing not just for Thursday but for Friday and Saturday with that move also. I thought it was really smart. I was rooting for Yarbrough to be able to finish it off, as was our friend Eric Steven, who loves 3-inning saves. So yeah, it was good to see. He got the job done. It was just a whole lot of positive today.
Yeah, I see some people in the chat. There are multiple ways to earn a save. The traditional one is to come into a game in which your team is leading by 3 runs or less, and then to finish it out. There's the other rule about if the tying run is on deck or something like that. that counts as a save. But the weird one that almost never happens, which is why Eric Stephen of True Blue LA loves it so much, is the 3-inning save. If you get the last 9 outs of a game, it does not matter what the gap was, as long as your team was leading when you came in and has led, an unbroken lead since then, it's always a save. So Ryan Yarbrough, the current saves leader for the Los Angeles Dodgers, which is kind of a funny thing. So John, thank you for the super chat again. Apologies for let that one sit for a little while. We did just get another super chat from Zip Code 0. What do you think about Yamamoto not throwing today or tomorrow? We mentioned this earlier, Anthony. He got game 2 in Korea when the Dodgers came back. Glasnow got the opening day and domestic opening day, but Yamamoto not getting game 2 this time around. Bobby Miller gets 2, Yamamoto 3. Big deal, no deal?
No deal. Much ado about nothing. Glasnow was signed to be their number 1, and he's pitched like it so far. And for Yamamoto, don't see him as not getting the ball in game 2 as like a demotion already. It's not a demotion. Like Jeff said earlier, if you're not the number 1 guy, if you're not starting opening day, then everyone else just sort of falls in, and it's based on matchups and rest and things like that at that point. And I think with Yamamoto, considering where he's coming from and what the schedule looked like in Japan when he was a starter, I think this was just done to ease him, to make it feel more familiar with him and give him those extra days off, as opposed to pitching him more on the major league schedule versus what he's been on. And they'll ease him in and out of that thing. The Dodgers are really good about sort of manipulating days and we all know bringing a guy up and sending a guy down, and guy ends up on the IL, and to miss all of that stuff that the Dodgers have been able to do. I think this is just in that vein where it was a rest deal. They think he has a full week off or something like that, and so
well, I was going to say this is the easy answer is actually just that. By starting the 3rd game, his next start will be on an extra day of rest, because the Dodgers' first off day is April 4th. If he was the second guy, he would have had to pitch on March 29th and then 5 days later on April 3rd. By waiting 1 day till March 30th, he can wait all the way until April 5th. So a guy who's used to a 6-day, once a week kind of a start schedule, by simply bumping him 1 day because of the way the schedule lines up, that to me, I don't think Anthony, and you're kind of leading into this, there's not more to the story than that, right?
That's what it was. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Of course, he'll probably have to make his next start. The next start will be interesting, because here's a unique scheduling fact as I'm looking at it. So he's scheduled to pitch on April 5th at Chicago. Then the Dodgers play the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. So 5 consecutive days after that. And then they get an off day on the 11th and play again on the 12th. So I would place a large sum of money that Yamamoto is going to pitch on the 5th and will not be pitching 5 days later on the 10th. Instead, Michael Grove or somebody else will be pitching on the 10th. The Dodgers have an off day on the 11th, and then Yamamoto might be pitching on the 12th. Something to keep an eye on, but I know that might mess some other guys' schedules off, but I would not be surprised, Anthony, if that's how that ends up playing out.
I think quickly to kind of put this one to bed, I think that when you have a guy like Glasnow with his injury history and he'll be on some sort of an innings limit, I would imagine, this year, based on just the number that he pitched last year. Yamamoto coming into the new schedule, and then the young guys like Miller and whoever else that may follow
Paxton injury history.
The Paxton injury history. This is going to happen a lot this season, where guys aren't. You might count out, like if you're looking to buy tickets to a game and you want to go see Yamamoto, and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, he should pitch that next day. Don't always bank on that, because they're going to be manipulating the rotation all season long.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. Ozzy with another super chat. We appreciate these. What role will Kyle Hurt have on this roster? He's an interesting one, because the Dodgers still sort of believe him to be a starting pitcher, and yet by all accounts, he's in the bullpen as a relief pitcher. Now, we just mentioned a sort of a piggyback type, bulk type situation. Could he get that opportunity ahead of Michael Grove? It doesn't seem like it. Ryan Yarbrough, another guy that would seem to be ahead. So he feels like the guy, Anthony, that, he's still a starter, but right now he's a reliever.
Yeah, he's a weird one, and that's a good question, because we're making puzzled faces still about this too. So Ozzy asked a really good question, right? He may just be up because they needed to fill that roster spot with the pitcher. Yeah, and when some of the relievers come off, he may be the guy who's gone. But yeah, I'm with you. It seems like there's other guys ahead of him in terms of who would be next in the queue for a rotation spot or a spot start here or there. But, considering that they still see him a starter, yeah, he could be an innings eater, in certain situations. So to answer the question better, Ozzy, I don't think he's long for the 26-man roster. I think he probably gets shuttled a little bit. So right now his position or his utility here is like kind of just taking a spot and making sure that they have enough arms.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Zip code 0 with another super chat. Do we trade for another starting pitcher? To me, this one, I understand why the question's being asked, because you're looking and saying, okay, Gavin Stone, who struggled last year, is in the opening day rotation. Sheehan's on the injured list. Like, Paxton's an unproven sort of, like, what are we getting? Is this Tyler Anderson 2.0 or Noah Syndergaard 2.0? And yet, I think when you look at the long game here and you say, all right, you have 5 guys right now who are all major league starters. Like, Stone used to be a top 50 prospect, has looked really good this spring. Paxton, when he's healthy, beginning of last season, was dominant. But then behind him, you've got Emmett Sheehan, who's a high-end prospect that people believe in, who looked good last year. You've got Buehler, who Dave Roberts reported is going to be back sooner than expected, so probably in the next 4 weeks, potentially by the end of April, which is kind of a crazy thing to believe after where things were a week ago. You've got Kershaw potentially coming back at some point, Dustin May potentially coming back at some point. I just think this is a long way, Anthony, of saying I would be shocked if the Dodgers traded for a starting pitcher, because it would mean that a lot had to have gone wrong between now and then.
Yeah. It's also a good question because of Will Smith's extension. And it makes certain guys possibly tradable now, like Cartea, right? Who hasn't necessarily panned out to what they thought he might be. And now they have Dalton Rushing behind him.
And another guy, Theron Lorenzo, who's another top 100 fringe prospect.
Right. And so, it makes certain guys expendable now. So I think the question is valid. I don't think they make a move now or in the near future. I think they wait to see how things play out. If somebody's not performing in that rotation, or if somebody gets hurt in the rotation, then maybe. But it could also be for another kind of like elite bullpen arm later on, Devin Williams or somebody like that, right? Like I think they now have opened themselves up to the possibility of, with this Will Smith extension, to trading some of the other catching prospects in the system who are still kind of coveted, and possibly getting a position of need and not necessarily a starting pitcher. It could be a starting pitcher, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't think.
Would you, real quick on this one, because this is a debate we had on our Will Smith show, yesterday, would you trade Cartaya and all of the team control of a guy that a year ago was, hey, this might be a future number 1 prospect in all of Major League Baseball? Would you trade him and all of his control for 1 year of Willy Adames?
No.
See, because we had yes. Scott was saying yes, and I've seen people saying it's Cartaya plus. I'm with you. So to be clear, I'm with you. That feels like I wouldn't sell low on Cartaya for 1 year of Adames. I mean,
that's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, and if there's a built-in extension to Adames, which everyone knows my thoughts on Adames, then I guess maybe it's stomachs a little bit more. But that's a question that I think is going to tear apart Dodger fans for the next few weeks. So
especially because he's playing, he's hitting the ball well right now. But no, I think to give up a prospect like that for a rental is, you're selling him for pennies on the dollar. And I think you can probably, if you package him correctly, you can get a lot more than Willy Adames for a guy like him.
Yeah, absolutely. Another super chat here. I love this. MMA Voice. Are those books behind you? What's your favorite sports related book? If that's romance, manga, I have no further questions. I can assure you that it's manga. I forget how that's pronounced. It's not that. I can assure you. On one hand, this is not my office. This is my dad. He's like 100 books in a year type of a guy. But I do have books, and I just mentioned, I just finished 3 Ring Circus by Jeff Pearlman, which is a book about the Kobe, Shaq, Phil Jackson Lakers, which is a great one. But Ball 4 is an incredible book. It's old, and if you haven't read it, it will make you laugh out loud. I promise you. I liked Molly Knight's book, The Best Tea Money Can Buy, about the Dodgers. It was a great sort of behind the scenes look. I had an author on recently. I'm blanking on the name of the book, but it was kind of about Fernando Mania, as well as sort of the history of Chavez Ravine. Eric Sherman.
Well, was it Sherman? You may be right.
I think it's Eric Sherman. I'm blanking on what the book is called, but I believe it's called that. It was by Eric Sherman. I'm pretty sure about that. But that book was really good, because I didn't know a ton about Fernando for before reading that. So Yeah. Any favorite sports books, Anthony? Are you a book guy? You've got a real make-believe bookshelf behind you.
Yeah. So if for anyone who was wondering why I have a fake background that looks real, it's because it is my office actually, but sometimes I don't sit in my office for these meetings or calls or whatever we're doing. So I took a picture of my office background, and that's what you're seeing there. But yeah, I read a variety of books, and these are a few of them in that picture behind me. I am currently reading one called The Coddling of the American Mind, which is not a sports book, but it's basically about like too long.
It's the Gavin Lux book, right?
Yeah. Yes. Too long didn't read. It's about like, kids in our generation went and played outside and scraped their knees up and drank out of water faucets and water hoses. Yeah. And kids now are on iPads and social media, and that's hurting them. That's essentially what it's about. But my favorite, good sports books that I have behind me, The Arm by Jeff Passan is a really good one. It's about pitchers and pitching injuries and Tommy John surgery and all that stuff. That's the one he follows Daniel Hudson around as Daniel Hudson comes back from surgery. So that's a good read for Dodger fans because he really gets into it with Daniel Hudson, and you really get to like the guy a lot. So I have a lot of different favorite sports books. I would be remiss to just stick to one, but anything Dodgers or Lakers related, I'm probably going to read. So yeah, the Three Ring Circus was very good by Jeff Pearlman for sure. Yeah.
Daybreak at Chavez Ravine, by the way, the name of the book that Eric Sherman wrote. It's very good. So thank you for the super chat. Great question. Fun to talk about something else. Let's see. We got a couple more super chats. These keep coming in. John, again, Dodgers announced Buehler could return sooner. Who is the odd man out in the Dodgers rotation? And what will the rotation be after the All-Star break? Let's start with the first one. And Anthony, I asked this question of the guys on our show a couple days ago. Gavin Stone or James Paxton? Who is higher in the pecking order? Because if Buehler comes back, they're going to need to make room for him. And as Robert's kind of hinted, that might be sooner rather than later. So let's answer the first question first and then get to the All-Star break question because I think that's separate.
I won't. Okay. I'll give you two answers to this. One is my realistic expectation of this. Yeah. And then one, and that won't be satisfactory. So then I'll give a real answer that will hopefully be satisfactory. The thing I think that is most likely to happen is they're going to juggle the rotation when he comes back, and they're going to use the extra guy to give guys extra days of rest, and kind of what we were talking about with Yamamoto earlier. And they're going to pick their spots where they're going to be like, okay, well, we can move this guy back and this guy up, and so I think you still see six starting pitchers for a while. And they won't call it a 6-man rotation. They'll say, oh, well, we moved this guy out for a start and brought this guy in for us. They'll do that. Like I said, probably the realistic one, at least when he first comes back, probably not the satisfactory one for this question. Yeah. I think it will be whoever is pitching worse between Paxton and Stone, I think will be gone. And if you are asking me to make a prediction on that, I think it's going to be Paxton who's gone.
Wow. I was going to say the opposite, not because I think Stone is better than Paxton. I really like Stone. I'm high on him. I just think Paxton's like the vet that can't be sent down. So if we're just playing like, reality, like life isn't fair kind of world, which is the world we live in, then I think Paxton's going to be in, and I think Gavin Stone's going to get sent down. And it could be, a phantom 30-day trip to the IL to conserve some innings, go keep your arm loose, but we don't want to burn a bunch of innings early on. But that would be my guess. I do think, though, that your 6-man rotation idea, they had talked about it with Glasnow, with Yamamoto, and with young guys. I could see that happening as well.
It makes the most
sense. Yeah. And I think, again, depending on what the schedule is, like if you have a stretch of 23 days with no days off or something like that.
Yeah, you need it anyway. And this also assumes everybody who's in the rotation right now is healthy.
Yeah, which is a huge if. Okay, so the second piece then, what will the rotation be after the All-Star break? Because in addition to Buehler, by the time we get to the All-Star break, Emmett Sheehan probably available. Again, we're going to assume health. Dustin May will not be back. Clayton Kershaw will not be back by the All-Star break, by all accounts. So I think we can cross those two guys off as hopefully by August is sort of the timeline that I'm on with both of those guys. But you get Sheehan, you get Buehler, and then you've got the 5 guys who are currently in the rotation. Look, we can pencil in Glasnow and Yamamoto. I think most people would say you could pencil in Bobby Miller, although could there be a phantom couple weeks rest your arm and save some innings later? I could see it. But pencil Bobby Miller in. So now you've got Stone, Paxton, Buehler, and Sheehan. Which of those two guys do you think get spot 4 and 5 post All-Star break if everybody's healthy?
Yeah. So you're saying Bueller's not in that, right? He's part of the guys.
I'm saying if you've got two slots and you've got to choose between Stone, Paxton, Buehler, and Sheehan, who are you choosing for those two slots?
I would think Stone and Buehler. Okay. But again, I think it is up to what guys look like in that time. If they're saying, you know what, Stone, the last couple starts looked a little gassed. He might need a breath here beyond the All-Star break, and he could be the guy who comes out. I really think that there's never a clear-cut answer with these kinds of things with this organization and this front office. I think we know enough about the Dodgers to know that. So there's going to be some juggling of guys and stuff like that. And so it's really it's probably a fool's prospect to try to predict that kind of thing now. But it's fun to do and it's hot taking.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, for sure. But it's Buehler and Stone, I think, and then that's always dependent on performance.
Yeah, I think Buehler, barring him being atrocious, which I believe in that he's going to be good. So I think Buehler's like closer to a lock than he is to these other three guys. I think the other three are in a pool of their own. Again, I'm going to stick with Paxton because I think he's on a major league deal. You have less work. I see some people saying, well, Paxton can go be the long man. That doesn't typically just automatically work with guys who have been around for a while. I think we can assume somebody will be injured before then, unfortunately. Again, I think Bobby Miller could get a rest at some point, but I'll take Buehler and I'll take Paxton. I think they send Sheehan and Stone down. I've said already, my conspiracy theory is Sheehan's not even hurt. They're just resting him and they're keeping him down just like they did Bobby Miller last year.
I mean, we've seen them do that before. Yeah, we've seen them do that before. Yeah, for sure.
So, I think there's lots of ways that could go, but great question there. And we appreciate the super chat. And so, hey, folks, we're at the hour 20-minute mark. And so normally we would do questions, but we had so many super chats, which were amazing and so much to get to that unfortunately tonight we're going to end it right here. So again, apologies to those who have questions who didn't get those answered. We will have more live shows coming. Sunday is a to be determined because it's Easter. There will be no normal Friday show because we moved it up to tonight in order to cover opening day. So stay tuned for details on a Sunday live show. But then next week, Tuesday night, live post-game show in our normal time slot. Friday night, live post-game show in the normal time slot there as well. So thank you to everybody for joining. Again, incredible turnout for opening day, domestic opening day, reopening day, whatever we want to call it. Dodgers win 7-1. They are 2-1 on the season. They head back to the mound again. Bobby Miller versus Zach Thompson for the Cardinals tomorrow. Programming note, you're all going to be pissed, but don't kill the messenger. Apple TV game tomorrow. Apple TV game. So apologies to those who don't have Apple TV, but that's where the game will be. That is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel. Folks, enjoy the rest of your night. And as always, go Dodgers.